The next trend that we're going to look at is the rise of the LinkedIn influencer. And we're going to see more and more LinkedIn influencers or creators, as they're called. And it's maybe not something that you necessarily think about whenever you think about social media influencers. You probably think about Instagram and so on, where these influencers are really, really prevalent. And don't get me wrong, there are influencers on LinkedIn. Um, they have its own LinkedIn influencer program, which is invite only. So only obviously the top, usually, very important people are people that have a huge audience, get invited onto that LinkedIn influencer program. And I suppose interestingly enough, the number one ranked influencer on LinkedIn is Bill Gates. I guess it's helpful that Microsoft own LinkedIn. So maybe I'll let you make your own mind up on that, as how he is ranked the number one influencer. But he certainly does carry a lot of insightful posts and so on. So there is influencers on LinkedIn, but now we see that trickle down into these creators, and these LinkedIn creator programs, where we'll see smaller sort of micro influencers and become more prevalent on LinkedIn. So obviously LinkedIn is the largest professional social network, where people go there to advance their careers, to win business, to position themselves as experts in their field. There's nearly 700 million active members on LinkedIn. As I said, is owned by Microsoft, and we've mentioned that LinkedIn has heavily invested recently in this creator program, and they've rolled out global creator programs, and they're making it easier to share content on their platforms and grow an audience. And anyone here listening to this webinar today can turn on their creator mode, which will give them access to um, uh, different types of content that they can share, and so on. So it can be a really good platform to showcase yourself as an expert. It's also growing continually to grow, and it is seen as one of the most positive social communities around. It doesn't have as many trolls, I guess, or as many sort of people looking to cause havoc and mayhem that we see maybe on the likes of Facebook and Twitter and so on. So it is quite a positive sort of community, which certainly will help in the business world. And I guess this whole notion of being a creator has maybe been brought about by this shift to a work from home culture, and maybe that has made people realize that the importance of creating an online brand or an online presence outside of the company, because maybe they don't see the employees, they don't see their managers, the owners of the company as much, and there maybe there's this, they feel that there's this need to be seen, to be out there, and people are starting to get more engaged in LinkedIn and creating content and networking and so on. So maybe this shift to work from home culture has seen sort of more and more uptake in LinkedIn, and people creating content, and through creating that content, it's obviously a great way to create visibility for yourself within your company, but also outside of your company. I've mentioned it's great to showcase thought leadership. So if you're creating content around your industry and around your sector, and within that sort of broader network, so it can be a great way to position yourself as an expert. And we'll see more and more of these creators pop up over the next 12 months, trying to grow the professional brands and position themselves as experts in their field.